Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our live webinar series, Organizing Your B.A.I.L. We are here this afternoon with a new webinar series that will last the next 4 weeks, Wednesday Lunch and Learns from 12 noon to 1 p.m. to share more information about how to prepare yourselves as you're formulating your business. My name is Sonya Bigelow-Smith. I'm the director of the Capital Readiness Program, and we're going to transition and get started here shortly. So welcome all. We're going to give a few moments for people to jump in. We've got a few more people that are signing on. So make sure that you have grabbed your lunch, a beverage, and a snack so that you are ready to start and listen in on this great conversation with Mr. Christopher Mills, who's the Vice President of Business Development for Harvest Small Business Financing. All right, so now we're going to get started here for one moment. Hello, welcome all. Please do me a favor and put your name in the chat and tell us where you're dialing in from. We'd love to see who's out there, where you're dialing in from, and maybe just one thing or two in terms of what you hope to learn in this session this afternoon. All right, we've got a few people that are still jumping in. People are raising their hands. We've got the chat. We're having some trouble. My apologies. We're getting the chat enabled. We will get that corrected here in a few moments. But why don't we go ahead and get started, because we know that everybody's time is precious. So again, good afternoon and welcome to the kickoff of the Capital Readiness Program's Organizing Your B.A.I.L webinar series. My name is Sonya Bigelow-Smith, and I'm the director of our Capital Readiness Program, a 4-year initiative to empower small business growth and improve the capital readiness of small businesses. On behalf of our President and CEO, Sharon Pender, we extend a special greeting and commendation for your attendance today. You all may not know, but we have a host of resources here at CRMSDC. Minority business certification, matchmaking opportunities with the private sector, and government contracting and coaching assistance via our Virginia MBDA Business Center. So please take some time to visit our website at crmsdc.org to learn more. Now, I hope, again, you all have your brown bag lunch, a beverage, and a snack with you as we get ready for an engaging conversation. Organizing Your B.A.I.L has been designed very intentionally to expose and reinforce the importance of having these professionals on your team: a banker, an accountant, an insurance agent, investors and funding options, and an attorney. In fact, according to the U.S. Census Bureau and the SBA, over 80% of businesses are non-employer businesses, meaning self-employed and managing solo. So we understand the importance of identifying a reliable team of resources to help you grow your business and in the time of need. Before we kick it off, let me start with a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be available to you at the conclusion of this recording in 24 to 48 hours. My teammate, Amanda Bill, our program coordinator, is standing by monitoring the chat and will monitor the Q&A chat box below at the bottom of your screen. Please put your questions in the Q&A box when we open it up for Q&A after Chris's presentation. So let's get started. Let me now invite our moderator today, Ms. Maria Randall, to come on screen. Maria is the president and CEO of LLADNAR Services, a consulting firm partnering with the Capital Readiness Program this year, specializing in assisting small businesses shore up their financials as they prepare to seek capital. With her years of experience as a banker, I'm sure you all know that she has seen dozens of loan packets and is the very best person we could have to help moderate this series. Welcome, Maria. Maria, I'm going to turn the virtual room over to you. Please share a little bit about yourself and what inspired your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sonya. I am so excited that we're doing this and to be here. So absolutely, yes. I spent about 25 years or so as a small business lender, primarily working with the SBA loan program. So that's an area of specialty for me. And during my time, as you said, looking at dozens of loan applications and getting to work with so many small business clients. One of the things that I would see that might preclude them from being able to take advantage of the SBA program or some of the other programs that are out there for small businesses designed to give them access to capital would be a lack of preparedness or not having a level of financial education, of business financial education that they really needed to sort of navigate the loan process successfully, to be able to put a loan application package in front of a lender that a lender like I would jump on and really want to dig into to do. So there are challenges in putting those together. And while there, in general, maybe resources out there, there definitely are for small businesses to get some assistance in that regard. A lot of times I would hear that it wasn't specific enough or personal enough for them. And I had in mind that once I took off my lending hat, that this was is what I was going to do. I was going to be that person who comes around to the other side of the desk and sits down with the business owner to help guide them as to what should be in your business plan or what your projections should look like, what things a lender is really going to want to see and enable an application to get through the process successfully. So that's what sort of led me to form LLADNAR Services to be able to do that work and advise those folks. And I figure I'm putting together information that I've amassed over a couple of decades to share and help small businesses in that way to be successful. So I'm excited to be able to do that. And in partnering with the Capital Readiness Program, I get to do that even more. So thank you for that, Sonia. Um, and so here we are for the B.A.I.L workshop series. I think just awesome and timely. I think when we're thinking about why do you need this B.A.I.L, which we know is banker, accountant, insurance. We're adding investment and lawyer in there. And it's really the advisory board or the ad hoc coaching staff that every small business should have, right? We should have some go-to folks that can help provide guidance in these different areas because every one of those areas is not going to be our own area of specialty. And it's great to have those resources, and it's great to have this series indicating what they can bring and how everyone should sort of have one of them on their bench. So a great idea to do this and to be able to share this information. And so I'd love to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Christopher Mills, and be able to get right into it. So Christopher Mills, my goodness, Vice President of Business Development for Harvest Small Business Finance. Um, I, it feels like longer than 27 years, Christopher, but he certainly has been in the banking and finance and commercial lending realm for quite a few decades, and helps small businesses through through all healthcare, those in the healthcare industry, those in any other, virtually any other business industry. Christopher has worked with folks. I've had the opportunity to know him for a good period of time and refer clients to him, and so I know that he brings a level of integrity and knowledge and professionalism that is just invaluable. And I would always know if I sent a client his way that they were going to get the very best because that's what Christopher gives consistently. So I'm
Wow.
excited to hear about what he's going to share today. But Christopher, go on. You can tell us a little bit about your background. I didn't mention your MBA in finance from Clark Atlanta and your economics degree. So you can fill in some of the blanks for everyone.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Most importantly, a diehard Commanders fan. And so the things that are most important in life, right? I will say that I've spent the last 27 years being an advocate for small businesses. And it started with my parents. My parents are both entrepreneurs. My mom has been in healthcare as a consultant and government contractor, and my dad was also in IT as a government contractor. And so, unbeknownst to me as a child, I was able to quickly learn what the life cycle and lifestyle looks like for small business owners. And so, yeah, I've spent majority of my career consulting and advising my clients from my early days in banking in 1997, as you mentioned, yeah, even today. And so the information that we're going to share today and the details, it is to provide, of course, as much clarity as possible about the importance of understanding the language of business, which is your financial statements at its basic core. So I will share my screen and start with the presentation here. So if there's any questions about anything, I will say, please, by all means, do not hesitate to stop me. I don't want this to be um, boring, and I don't want this to be above anyone. I try to speak in plain English and make this fun. I will say for those of us that have anyone here that's watched Shark Tank over the last 10 years, 15 years, if you notice the conversation and banter between the investors and the entrepreneurs, it starts and ends with the numbers. And so it's the same with your bank, because although we're not investors, we're making investment decisions to decide whether your company itself is eligible for the financing that you're looking for or the project that you're looking um, to expound upon to grow your business, et cetera. And so I will tell you that in my experience, I have a lot of comfort when my clients at least understand the language and can speak to me on those general terms about their company. I don't expect my clients to be accountants in any way, but I do expect that they understand the basics between their financial statements. So let's see if we can dig into it here. Hopefully my screen will adjust. There you go. And that is so the financial, we call it the three-ring circus. These are the financial statements that we know today we're looking at typically when a business presents a loan to us. And the balance sheet and income statement are the two core, and of course the cash flow statement. Some companies may not have a cash flow statement depending on the level of financial statements that they have, but these are the three core documents that not only you need to understand, but that as bankers we're going to be assessing and scrutinizing and really getting a feel for whether your business is qualified or ready for whatever your project may be. So you see here we kind of define them in ways that I think are kind of layman's terms. A balance sheet's a selfie for your business, right? Gives you an idea as to where things look as of that particular day, asset, liabilities, and equity. And then your income statement is a diary. And I say minus a juicy gossip. In other words, it means what are your revenues? What are your expenses? Your net profit over a particular time period, typically 12 months, but sometimes it could be a lesser time frame. It could be as short as 30 days or even a quarter. Depending on the business, that those different time criteria can be very important. Numbers that make us smile. So we're looking at, in a general sense, we're trying to get a feel for the status of your business. Um, Debt coverage, current ratio, debt to worth. These are financial terms, but I wanted to define them for you so you can see what's most important as we're really assessing, whether your company itself is ready to take on the financial challenge that maybe a loan opportunity presents. And so, as I say it there at the top, your banker is not just a lender. We are your financial weatherman, and our job is either consult you in advance of your need or to kind of tell you what we see if we're looking at an assessment right there in front of us. And so it's important to understand these are just some basic ratios, but there's plenty of others that I could go into that would probably bore you, but we will look at. And I tend to explain these in great detail to my clients so they understand either before we're looking at an opportunity, or if they're an existing customer, hey, here are the items or financial ratios that are important now that you have the loan with the bank. Because sometimes the game can change once you're a borrowing customer. These are items you see have red flags, items that make us a little nervous. If we see declining sales trends, at least hopefully want you to be able to answer what's behind it. Hey, Christopher, I had a tough year. I lost a contract. Hey, I lost a few customers, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side, hey, you had a year where you had really solid growth. We call it hockey stick growth, where you're just taking off. Your business was $1 million business one year, and the next year you did 12 million. Well, that may sound great to you. My question is, how'd you get there? What's behind it? Is that normalized? So as much as it may sound like we're looking at the doomsday scenario here, sometimes it can be just the opposite, where a client has a great year, and I'm asking the same questions. Tell me how you got there, and what can I do to help? Because, of course, accelerated growth can be very expensive. And if you don't have the internal infrastructure, sometimes those things can be just as challenging as a down year. I remember one year in my mom's business, she was trying to get to the next level. She had this number she wanted to make. And I showed her year over year how she made more money when she was a little smaller, because she wasn't ready for the growth that came with her revenue growth. And so she wasn't focused on the bottom line. She just figured, if I can just get to a certain dollar amount, basically, everything would be great. And similar to Biggie's record, more money, more problems. And that was what she experienced in that particular year. So it's my job to look at these items, but it's important that you as an entrepreneur understand the impact of these particular scenarios. You'll see in the corner, late pay. I've got a client right now who has struggled with making his payment. And I know he has cash flow issues because his payments are always late. I talked to him. He was not invoicing his clients in a timely fashion. And so he couldn't make his loan payments because he was too concerned about upsetting his clients by asking for payment. And I asked him, I said, do you continue to give them services? Do you give them, and he's got a service-based business. He said, yes. I said, why? What leverage do you have if you continue to provide services to them and they're not paying you? Because I can tell you at the bank level, we're not going to accept no payment, and we're going to call you a loan, et cetera, et cetera. So he had to look at his business practices and make a strong decision, a hard decision, on whether he was going to continue making those same choices. Typically, I can look at your financial statements. I'll know within 10 minutes where you stand, and I'll have some really pointed, direct questions for you based on the information that I see. And hopefully you can answer those questions. And today's presentation is an opportunity for you to understand what's important to us as bankers, but also things you need to stay on top of as you continue to grow your business. So the truth department. Uh-oh. Looks like looks like I was kicked out of do you see me there still? Do you still see my screen?
We don't see the screen, Christopher. So maybe
Yeah,
try
it
resharing.
looks like I was bumped out of the meeting. Hold 1 second. See if I can rejoin. Um, 1 second here. You can still hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it looks like I was,
Hear and see you, but
yeah, presentation was,
okay. Sonia's putting it up.
okay. Still,
Yes,
I can see it.
yeah, Chris, I can, and we're extending forgiveness for the technical difficulties, but can you see it now, and I can advance for you?
I can see it now. Yep. And
Okay.
if you can move to the slide that says the truth department.
Okay.
It's a few before that one. Keep going. There you go. All right. Apologies for that. So the truth department, we talk about financial reporting as a cornerstone of a successful business. And the reality is that depending on where you are in your business, your bank may require you to have a certain threshold or a certain level of financial reporting, depending on either the dollar amount of your loan or the nature of your industry. It's important to understand that between a compilation, an audit, or a review financial statement, what that criteria looks like. Not every bank is going to require this, but I tell clients at a minimal, you should have a compilation summary at the end of every year. If you can afford a review, I think it's a good tool to have. And this kind of breaks down, the details around each particular one. And this is where your CPA as a financial partner becomes really an integral part of your success. Your accountant and myself, we should be talking on really quarterly, at a minimal, a couple times a year, to make sure that we're on the same page with regard to not only the bank's expectations, but the CPA's perspective on providing financial information. There are some scenarios where you may have to provide financials on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, definitely on an annual basis. I have clients now that are still working with H&R Block with regard to their annual financial statements, and I cringe when I hear this, but it's real. I have a client right now who's looking for a loan, and she doesn't. She only looks at her financials once a year, so she can't even tell me if she made money last year. She couldn't answer any questions, and I said, "Hey, you got to invest in a good bookkeeper. I don't mind using QuickBooks or any of the software that's out there, but you got to have information that you can literally at a push of a button tell me where you stand for with regard to your business throughout the year." And so these are just the three of the highest ones that we see when it comes to accountability with regard to your financial records. If you're fortunate enough to have a business where you can have an internal accountant with your company, then great. You can provide some of these financials with your team. But realistically, most people are outsourcing these services. So it's important to find a good business-minded accountant that can assist with this, because I can tell you, at a minimal, a compilation summary on an annual basis should be prepared for your company. But you should be able to look and see where you stand from a financial perspective in June, in July, in August. On an interim basis, I have no problem looking at a business, but I have to at least understand where things were historically and where you are today. Why is this important? Because the reality is this: banks are looking in the rearview mirror to make a loan decision today. Hear me when I say that. We're looking at what you did the last 3 years. And you may say, Chris, why is that important? 2022 was a horrible year. We're going through the pandemic. My company today is a much different company. That is accurate. You're right. However, we're looking at trends, and the only way we can make a decision today is to look at the past. The way you counter that is by being able to provide me financials through the first quarter of 25. We're in March, so maybe you finish your January financials. Realistically, you should have December done by now. So if I'm looking at someone's loan today, I'll say, hey, I know your taxes aren't done, but can you send me your internal profit and loss balance sheet, AR and AP aging as of 12/31/24? And they'll say, well, I don't have my year-end numbers yet. I don't have my compilation. I don't have my review. No problem. I know that's a few months away, but can you send me your QuickBooks documents? And that's, for some clients, for one in particular, it's caused her loan to be delayed 90 days at a minimum. So that's why it's important to make sure that your accountant and your bank are on the same page. Let's move to the next slide. Next slide should say money traffic report. And so just to give you an idea what's important to us and what we look at the end of the day, depending on the lender, depending on the bank, depending on your industry, number one is always going to be important: strong cash flow. Are you making money? Period. And that helps me understand whether you can support repayment of the loan, whether it be a line of credit or whether it be a term loan. It looks like they're having trouble with seeing the slides, Sonya.
Okay, we'll address it and see if we can reshare.
Okay. Okay, someone said they can see it now, looks like. Okay. Looks like Edward said you can see it. All right, perfect. And so I just wanted to kind of present, these are the things that for us, we're looking at. Seasonality with your business. Can you explain it? Can I see the same trend year over year? If you know that the summer is your busy season, great. If you know that the fall is not, great. I should see those trends in your financial statements. And then, of course, red light. Where did all the money go? Right? For those of you that have an accountant that is showing you net losses on an annual basis, if they're managed losses, meaning that you're making money, but the reality is that they want to make sure you're not paying anything to Uncle Sam, I do understand that concept. However, if you are in a growing business or you have growth plans for your business and you know you're going to need financing or you're going to need to sit down in front of a bank and present your package for a loan, I will tell you that you should moderate that. The reality is that yes, you're going to pay taxes if you make money. But if you can't show a bank that on paper you're profitable, if you don't have profitable growth in your rearview mirror, historically, it's going to be very, very challenging for us to say yes to your loan request. It becomes a very easy decision, as a matter of fact. I've had clients that I've told, hey, I wish I talked to you in July because I could see that you were doing really well through June. And then for the last quarter, your accountant, really managed down your numbers so you didn't have to pay taxes. The reality is this: your tax returns are on a cash basis. Your internal documents, the documents I referenced in the prior slide, compilation, the review, and the audit are done on an accrual basis. You don't need to know what those terms mean. You can Google those terms. The reality is that the cash basis is always going to minimize taxable income. That's the good thing about your tax returns. And that's why it's important to have two sets of financial statements, because the documents that I'm going to want to see, in addition to your taxes, are going to be either your compilation summary or your review. And in a scenario with someone that has a large growing company with a sizable loan need, ongoing loan need, the bank may require an audit. The reality is that information is going to show a better picture, and it should show me all the things I need to feel comfortable that we can move forward potentially with the loan. Now, if you're losing money in both cases, an accrual and cash basis, then we really need to talk about how you can manage your expenses better and what you can do to make sure that you continue to show yourself in a positive light. Traffic jam when inventory won't move. I mean, obviously, it kind of speaks for itself. That clearly means that your sales are declining and your inventory is becoming stale. And if you're in a business where a bank's requiring a line of credit based on inventory, they don't tend to lend aggressively on it in general. But that begs a question of what's going on and how can you change that? Typically, that's not something you see on a year-over-year basis, but it can show up. And we do look at inventory turn pretty specifically. The next slide should read the documentation dance. There you go. So for us, this is basically about the loan package. This is what Maria mentioned. We look at these all the time for clients. I send clients about 5 or 6 bullet points for each request that they ask. And it's usually the same items. The last 3 years of personal taxes, business taxes, personal financial statement, sometimes a resume are included in those items. Bank statements, I can tell you, driver's license, you name it. You should have those things ready to go and understand that me asking for them is a part of my due diligence to get a feel for whether your loan will be approved or not. I've had some borrowers, you'd be surprised, that don't want to provide the information, or they only want to give me a couple of things. And I just say to them, it's hard for me to assess where you are and to get you approved with half your loan package. You don't go to your doctor and tell them half the information. Oh, well, I've got pain in my foot, figure out the rest. No, you tell them everything. If you trust your doctor, and that's important to understand. If you trust your banker, if you don't, then you're just basically taking a shotgun approach. I recommend, before you need a loan, before you're looking at these type of requests where they're asking for your first, second, and third born, that you get to know your banker. Of the consultants that are going to be presenting behind me, I think we are probably the only one that it does not cost you a dime to talk to us. You're never going to get an invoice from me. I'm never going to call you and say, hey, it was great. Hey, can you pay me XYZ for our time yesterday? Nope. That's not how it works. Matter of fact, most bankers like myself, I'll take you to lunch. Let's sit down and talk, grab a bite to eat. We all have to eat. Let's grab breakfast. Let's go grab a cup of coffee and talk about your project, talk about your business offhand, outside the office where you're not distracted. And that's the same thing you can do. So I recommend you do that. The documentation here, this is pretty standard information here that we're going to ask for. The next slide should say the secret sauce. There you go. And I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Know your numbers. I mean, I think it speaks for itself. Obviously, be honest. Plan ahead. Stay in touch. I can tell you, I've had clients that failed in all these categories. I had a client that lied to me, and unfortunately, I found out that he had a foreclosure. I said, "Hey, is there anything I should know before we get into your application for your medical practice?" I said, "If so, hey, make sure you go out there and clean up any items or issues, because I can tell you our due diligence is going to be forensic in nature." And I was just trying to be honest with him. He looked like me, so I figured maybe he hadn't heard this before, but let me tell you, we're gonna figure it out. And when the underwriter calls me and said, "Hey, Chris, did you know this was out there? Did you have an idea this person had a bankruptcy or whatever the case may be?" And I say no, then that means that you've lost credibility with my underwriter and you lost it with me, because you didn't let me know. If I understand what the issue is, I may say, "Hey, listen, give me a letter of explanation, sign and date it, and just send it to me. I'll put it in the file just in case someone wants to know." But I can let my underwriter know, "Hey, this client had a bankruptcy for a medical issue back in XYZ year. Um, Husband and wife had to file bankruptcy, and everything is good going forward. Credit score is XYZ. I had it happen a month and a half ago. I closed a loan for a client back in February because they were honest. So don't let me find those things. I am your advocate. My goal, I'm incentivized to say yes. My goal is at events like today and opportunities like today are for you to understand how the game is played, so that you're not in an application scenario where you are not sure if you're going to hear yes or no. Um, and so, yeah, we are here to help and be a resource. And I think the more I understand about your business, the better I can speak intelligently about the opportunity itself. Next slide. And this is a kind of a continuation of what I mentioned before about our relationship. If you don't have a good banking partner in your particular market, if you're not here in the DMV, then I recommend you reach out to your accountant. Most accountants know some good bankers. Most bankers know good accountants. And so you could use us both to find a good partner. So let's say one leg on your stool you're strong in. If you got a good banker, great. You may need to reach out and say, "Hey, I want to make sure that I've got the right accountant that's partnering with me. What questions should I ask? Does your does your bank understand your industry? How many clients do you have in your portfolio, Christopher, that look like me? Are you comfortable with government contracting? Do you understand the FAR? Do you even know what SAM.gov is?" Um, you'd be surprised how many how many bankers, mostly the younger bankers that are just not being trained on those things, just don't know where to start. And they'll all tell you yes because they want to get you approved for their loan because that's how they're paid. But the reality is that, if someone can't tell you that they have several DoD clients that they work with, or in my case, several medical practices that they work with, or I've probably put 50 doctors or put 50 dentists into practice in the last 10 years. So when a medical practice or practitioner comes to me, I don't have a major learning curve with the nature of your business. So as I mentioned, make sure that you are the one telling the banker or telling your banking partner, where the warts are, if they're already in your business. I think that's my last slide. So here's my information. If I can be a resource to you, if I can answer any questions offline, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to call me directly, send me an email. I'm happy to help. I'm a nationwide commercial real estate lender today with Harvest Small Business Finance. But I've sat in those chairs, and I've consulted my share of small business owners around the country in these matters. And I can tell you, I've been a senior lender for over 20 some odd years. If you don't know how the game is played, it's very difficult to be successful. And I would say that with what is unfortunately coming down the pike with regard to the set-aside programs, the 8As of the world, effectively going away, it's even more important that you know how to navigate these times. And so I've done these presentations numerous times over the years, and I cannot tell you how important it is to make sure that you've done your homework, but in advance of whatever your request may be. So definitely open to any questions.
Excellent job, Christopher. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of us, my neck is going to be sore from nodding along with you, like on so many points, because you gave so many um, good nuggets there that are important for business owners to hear. Um, so I don't
Yeah.
know, Amanda, if you want to go to the question box to see what's in there. But I have one I'll throw out to you, Christopher, first, and give Amanda a chance
Mhm.
to do that, because you talked a lot about a lot of things, the importance of the numbers. You kind of gave us a preview for next week's session when we'll have an accountant here who can touch
Yeah.
on compiled and reviewed and audited financial statements. But just from your 20 plus years experience, what would you say that beyond the numbers that separates those businesses that get approved from those that don't?
Well, I'll tell you, what I've seen consistently is we do look at management experience. We do want to understand what you've done, either in your past or currently, that continues to qualify you as the right person, not only for your company but for this loan. So when we're assessing, are you going to repay us? It's not just the financials. A lot of times, it is following your gut. And I've worked with individuals that when I brought things to them that they maybe weren't aware of, I say, hey, you got a small tax lien for this and that. The ones that jumped on it and really moved with intention, um, that always impressed me. It's easy for a banker to sit here and assess your business, um, but I'm not running it every day. And so, one of the first questions I ask when someone's buying a business is, okay, what experience do you have in this particular industry? You know,
Right.
you know, and so sometimes it catches them off guard, but oftentimes they'll be ready to go. Hey, yeah, I've been doing this for XYZ years, or I have this level of experience, through family members, et cetera, et cetera. And at least they have a general idea. I'm always leery when people can't answer the basic questions about their company, because I'll just start with, tell me about your business. I don't get into, I don't have the financials most times. We're just
Right.
talking in general. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a loan I'm looking at now for someone who bought into a business about 5 years ago, right before the pandemic, and she survived the pandemic. And as you know, here in Maryland, a lot of these businesses were shut down
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
for a good
Good
amount
for
of
them.
time. Yeah. And so now she has some debt that she wants to restructure, because she took on some really high interest loans because she had to. That because she had just bought the company, she didn't have the financials to show. I won't throw the name of the bank out, but that she could qualify for a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now, 5 years later, I mean, the company is thriving. So she's turned the corner on paper, but you talk to her, you can not be impressed with her background. So does it all match up? I've had folks that had great financials, and I did not, for some reason, their character just didn't ring true to me, and I was just I wasn't expecting great things. And I had people that have a great background, but the financials just aren't there yet, and that's when you
Right.
know that they really are missing a good accountant to advise them. I've got a scenario right now where someone's been basically getting bad advice. This gentleman's got a $12 million company, and he's going to H&R Block for his financial statements. And that's what I'm like. Every accountant I know that understands his industry, I said, I'm reaching out to make an introduction, because
Right.
that is where the gap is.
Right.
And then I,
Right.
I saw his tax returns, and I said, you have broken out, there's no indirect expenses on your P&L. Well, he's going to H&R. So now he's got to recast his tax returns for the last 3 years.
Ah,
And he's finally found an accountant here, just in the Indianapolis area, that is all over it. I said, dude, you're going to need 6 months to clean this up.
yeah.
And then
Right.
come back to me and I can help you.
And after
So
tax season ends, because they're a
that's
little
right.
busy right now.
That's right. That's right. Well, here's the problem though. He needs the money yesterday.
Oh,
So
gosh.
those are those scenarios where sometimes you can put the pieces together, and sometimes, you know, you can't. And so I've been trying to tell him, um, that he needs to seek an extension with his bank to give him time to clean up the financials.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So we are
Advice.
literally consultants. I'm an advisor. The loan process is just one part of it. Obviously, I speak the language very well because I've been doing it for so long, and it's second nature to me. But it could be that your issue is not financial in nature. It
Mm,
could be that you have some risk management issues, right?
mm,
You could be
mm.
going through a lawsuit, just a variety of things. So what happens is, as an experienced lender, I partner with people in the market that I can bring to the table to help them deal with that particular issue, that then once they're done with it makes them eligible for financing.
There you go. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, that's real help.
yeah.
Oh, that's great, Christopher. Amanda, did you see any in the questions in the question box that
Yes.
Christopher can answer for us?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So right now, it looks like we have a few clients who are looking for some advice. The first set of advice that they're looking for is, what advice would you have for a Canadian establishing a new business in the US and is looking for funding? They don't have any US credit yet. However, they are well established in Canada and been operating for 5 years.
Is this going to be a U.S. affiliate or is it going to be headquartered here in the States? Um, and then are you still, I'm assuming you're a Canadian citizen. Have you gone through the process of maybe getting your green card here in the States?
I'll
Those
give
are
them some answer.
those are those are questions that I would ask. Doesn't prevent you from getting financing. Most likely, what I would do in that scenario, before you even answer that question, is I would find a Canadian bank that has presence here in the U.S. I used to work for TD Bank, and I can tell you their headquarters here is in New Jersey, and it's the same bank. They're still headquartered in Toronto, but you may find that there's less of a learning curve working with a bank that is very familiar with Canadian laws. So I would probably start there. They're not the only one. I think RBC used to have pretty good presence here in the US, but that's where I would start if you're looking for kind of an easy path to figure out whether you can get financing for your business. But you mentioned not having credit. I think I would move forward with trying to establish credit here in the States.
Perfect. Thank you. And then we have a two-parter. This young Imani, it says, I'm inclined to finding a new bank, but not sure if I should be looking for the right bank or the right banker. And then if you have any overall advice on finding a local banker.
What business are you in? I would focus on a couple of things. You want to find the right banker within the right bank because we are potentially handcuffed by the lack of industry experience with our own internal team. So I worked for a bank previously that was headquartered in North Carolina, and I was here in Maryland, and they didn't understand government contracting. And so I told them, I said, listen, every other client I talk to is either a medical practitioner or a government contractor. So yeah, you understand medical practices because the default rates are so low, but the reality is that in this particular market, I am not competitive, and I can't speak to a balance sheet um, line of credit for a government contractor. So either I'm going to just not focus on that market, or we're going to get there internally. Well, culturally, the bank just didn't understand it, and they didn't want to understand it. So even though I think I'm a pretty solid banker, I was within a bank that couldn't help my government contractors the way I should have been able to. So that's
Understood.
that's that's what you wouldn't necessarily know. But I would tell you this: of your internal, whether you have your own internal board of consultants or advisors, it could be family, friends, or if you have a good accountant or a good attorney. Most business-minded attorneys, and I say business-minded because they may not. Some attorneys can specialize in a variety of things outside of business, but an accountant, same thing. You can ask them, hey, do you have any great bankers or good bankers that you recommend? I'd love to interview them in the process of trying to find a good banker. And what I do when I go to meetings with accountants, I'll ask them for a good attorney or a good consultant and I'll say business minded because I'll say, hey, all my clients are looking for qualified individuals. And although I know you, I know what your niche is, if I can engage a consultant or an attorney or an accountant, so I focus on the three wheels of the stool that I don't represent because I want to make sure that my client raises his hand and says, "Hey, Chris, I've got a tenant need on the legal side, and I can't get rid of this, I need to evict this tenant, I want to make sure I can introduce him to an attorney that can help him. And if he then says, well, okay, I'm looking for a good accountant and I'm in the restaurant industry, you may think, well, a generalist is great, but there are some accountants that specialize in that particular industry. So I would get pretty granular with that question and answer, and look at it like dating. You got to get a feel for someone who's kind of gets your industry, gets your business, but at the same time, you guys connect on some level.
Thank you. Do you have any tips on obtaining contract financing or loans for small businesses who might be under 3 years of age?
Yes. So let me just make this crystal clear. Banks like to lend to stabilized companies. They are not, and I'll say, maybe I'll change the word from stabilized to mature. They are not the best source for early firms. That's the one thing people sometimes will miss because no one's telling you that, right? In other words, when I say I want to look at a 3-year history, but you've only been around for a year and a half, that's where the delta presents itself, right? You can't provide information you just don't have. And if you're in an industry where you are a contractor today and you have one contract, prime or sub, and you say, well, where do I go? There are some banks that will have no problem lending on your balance sheet, have no problem lending on your contract, but they're typically community banks. However, if you are in a scenario where you just don't have the financials yet, you're really early, there are some non-bank contract lenders in the DMV that are really good about helping you get to the next level. And I remember this is years ago, I was at the San Diego Gulf Coast conference, which is out by the Navy in San Diego. I was playing golf with this recently retired lieutenant colonel who's, was telling me how things were going to go and how he was planning for great things for his business. And I said, listen, call me in 3 years. And he said, what do you mean, Chris? I said, you're not gonna get a bank loan for at least 3 years. And he just said, you don't know what you're talking about. And we're playing golf, beautiful day. So I wasn't gonna disrupt his day, but I was right. Even though he had a great background, even though he had won contracts, even though he saw marketing material from Wells Fargo and all the big banks saying, we love government contractors, the reality is that they weren't gonna touch him until he was beginning to prove himself. What do you do if you're in that scenario? You've got to find a non-bank lender that will help you get there. And there are a few that are industry specific that I think can be resources for you. And I can definitely relay that information to you directly post call. A few good resources that are here in the general area that will support you to get to the next level. And I will say this, for those folks that are scared of factoring or scared of contract finance, don't be. Yes, you can get cheaper money from the bank, but the hurdle to get there is much higher. And so everything I mentioned today, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to financing your business. So yes, you can obtain some money. It's not going to be the cheapest, but it will help you grow your business to show credibility, help you build your capability statement. And then when you come to see me at the bank, you're going to be ready to go. And then you can take advantage of lower cost of capital.
And that goes to
Awesome.
one of the slides. I'm sorry, Amanda, but what you said, Christopher, goes to one of the slides you had. It's about trends as far as the bank is concerned. Trends matter, and until you've been around a couple of years to be able to show a trend, it's often too big of a risk for them. But a non-bank lender is a great alternative. Good point.
Yeah. The reality is this: 9 out of 10 startups, unfortunately, do fail. And you say, well, Chris, what's startup? Well, when your first 10 years, that sounds like a long time horizon, but and some will say 5, but I'm going to tell you 10, because imagine if you started your company in 2020 and we're in 2025. What kind of turmoil would you have gone through in the last 5 years? Have you really gotten traction yet? I mean, realistically, depending on your contacts, your network, and your ability to grow through these tumultuous times, the answer could be yes or no. Only you know that.
Some great advice. Thank you. So then another question is, at what point If the level of revenue or years in business, will the bank consider the company's credit history without relying on their personal credit history and not require personal guarantee?
Great question. I'm gonna
Take
say
that
this
one.
now. This is gonna sound really harsh. I don't want to say never. I don't want to say never because I don't like that word, but I'm gonna say
Once you're
never.
publicly traded, isn't that the other answer?
Yeah,
Once you
yeah.
become publicly traded
It's
on the
when you
exchange.
when you when you get to a point where you don't need the money, banks they'll throw money at you, and they'll do it from a non-recourse nature. And what do I mean by that? I had a company I banked here in the Annapolis area that was a $150 million company. I couldn't give them a line of credit. I tried my best, and when I did, I had to make it so painless for him that it was more for me than it was for him. He didn't need it. He had $10 million on his balance sheet. Um, and realistically, it was much more of a peace of mind, more of an ego line. I want to be able to tell my buddies I got a $5 million line of credit with XYZ Bank, but he didn't need the money, right? So that is the scenario. And listen, that's not just the revenue size or the complexity of the company or how long it's been around. It was a second generation family run business. The son was running it. The son was barely 30 years old, did not have the experience that mom and dad did. I'll tell you this, mom and dad did guarantee the previous line. But by the time they sold to the son, the company was so solid financially, we couldn't even have a conversation with regard to the son providing a guarantee. So it really depends is probably a better answer than never. But I can tell you that we're going to want you to really be in a solid financial position where the line of credit really is to support a unforeseen scenario. If you need a line of credit to support your receivable base to manage payroll, then most likely you're going to need to stand behind it. And you shouldn't be concerned about that. Why? You're running your business, you're managing the business. I am never going to call you and say, hey, I need you to go ahead and draw 100,000 on your line today. No, I'm going to rely on you and your team to tell me not only what you need based on what your run rate and what contracts that are coming on board next year, but I'm going to need you to manage it correctly. All I'm going to do is tell you the criteria that's important to us, so that you can continue to have access to that line of credit. But I can tell you now, if you're 10 million, 5 million, 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, there's a good chance you can still be expected to guarantee the line of credit. Now, it is unsecured. This is not secure with personal assets. It's not secure with a stock portfolio. It's not secure with your home. So it is literally your signature that simply says, as a CEO and president of my company, I'm willing to stand behind my company, and I'm going to make decisions with the knowledge that I have this bank line in place with.
Chris, you've got a wealth of information that's just pouring out of you here, and I can tell that there's a lot that can keep going. So I know it's great that you shared your contact information. I know that we want to thank you first of all so much, and
Yeah.
since we're getting close to the top of the hour, just wanted to make a little time to tell everyone about next week's session, which will be the A in our B.A.I.L series. So we will have an accountant, Constance Nuoso, here for our lunch and learn at that time. But I encourage you all, yes, to definitely reach out to Chris. You can see that he's a wealth of information, and really, really appreciate your joining us. And thank you, Chris, for putting together the presentation. And then I think, Sonya, if you want to come and share a little bit more about what's coming next, that would be great. Great session. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Did I freeze there for a
You
moment?
you were on mute, but you're good.
Okay, I froze and I'm on mute. Let me just echo, Maria, what you just mentioned. Chris, I applaud you. Thank you so much for a very real and relevant conversation. We wanted to make sure that we provided as much information and detail around all of those considerations as you're seeking to secure a banker. And we always tell our clients that are coming through the Capital Readiness Program, you want to meet with a couple of bankers because you're vetting them as well. You want to make sure that you understand and feel like the relationship is going to be good and productive. Someone like Chris Mills, who's giving you sage advice, whether he can work with you now or later, is always helpful. So Chris, thank you so very much. Maria is also a helpful resource that is connected with us through our Capital Readiness program. She serves as our business coach for our business owners and to help with strategic planning, making financial assessments, and also working on your financial projections. So make sure that you reach out to us and complete our intake form on the Capital Readiness website at www.crmsdc.org/CRP for any additional assistance. And again, please reach out to Chris if you're seeking a banker, or send him an email if you have some questions that weren't answered today. He's been extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Maria. So lastly, I would just like to welcome you all back. And Maria did mention this. Next week, we will have an accountant that will be presenting for you. But I would thank everyone for joining us today. Welcome you all back next week to join us for lunch. Make sure you grab lunch, a beverage, and a snack. And come back and listen in again to Constance Nwosu, who's the managing member of CN Accounting and Business Services. And let us help you organize your B.A.I.L for 2025. So with that, we'll end the call. Thank you, everyone. And as I always say, the best time to seek capital is when you don't need it. So onward and upward. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.